The second binomial is composed by Professor Jocelyn Bloch. Jocelyn Bloch is a professor of neurosurgery and co-director of Research Center NeuroRestore. She specialized in stereotactic and functional neurosurgery and acquired an extensive experience and expertise in neuromodulation for movement disorders. It's very important. I'm very impressed. Pain and epilepsy. She is in charge of the functional neurosurgical. It's not easy, right? It's not an easy one. But I'm still impressed. I say it's a test, okay. Neurosurgical unit at the CHUV, very active in experimental medicine and translational neuroscience. She nourishes a profound interest. That was for me that you did the test, okay. In the development of advancing technologies and therapeutic paradigms in neuromodulation, neuroregeneration, and cell therapy. Yep, bravo. Jocelyn, you're welcome. Welcome on stage.
You passed the test.
Bravo. I don't know if I passed it, but I just kind of went through it. I don't know how. Adrienne Corbouf Fumagalli. Fumagalli? Ça se dit comme ça? We say like that. Okay, Fumagalli. Adrienne is a bridge builder. Incredible. We have a bridge builder. It's incredible. Listen, I'm moving from an executive role in the high-tech industry to academia. She has developed the BFL Innovation Park so that scientific researchers with their discoveries and product developers looking for solutions learn to understand and respect each other. Be welcome. Yeah, big applause. Welcome.
Merci.
Ça va?
Yes, sure.
Ooh, okay. So
I don't build bridge. It's a
let's see that here.
It's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor. Oh, it's a metaphor. I thought it was a okay. I build bridge too, you know. Yes, I do that. That's what I'm trying to do. You know, when you are in the movie business. So incredible. You both are just amazing. We have 20 minutes. So we're going to go into the same kind of game. But we're going to talk about knowledge management. Okay? Transmission du savoir. I'm trying to put like a little bit of a, you know, how do you recognize yourself in the theme?
Should I start?
Knowledge management.
Okay.
From a professional and perhaps also a private point of view.
I think for me, in fact, I said that I am building bridge, but I am in fact somebody who has been active in innovation, business development, and I would say valorization of intellectual property and knowledge. And when I see that knowledge management, there is two phases. One is protection of knowledge, which is embedded maybe in patent, and it's to give companies an advantage, a competitive edge compared to the rest of the industry. So that's innovation. On the other hand, the creation of knowledge comes from research, fundamental research, and there it's more an exercise of sharing, and it's embedded in, for example, publication for researcher. And my job when I decided to leave executive position and to go to EPFL to facilitate this development was to find a way of bridging these two worlds. One world of the industry is always more looking at short term because the pressure of the market. On the other hand, to differentiate itself in research, or researchers have to look for something which are always more long term because it should be unique, etc. And they are focusing on mainly what is their reward publication. And so how do you translate this phenomenal research success into something more applicable to the industry or to innovation and to society in general? That's why I see this knowledge management, which has two sides, which are sometimes not converging but diverging because of the I would say the logic of the two industries, if I can mention like that.
Okay, so on my side, transmission of knowledge, I think, is very important because I work in an academic environment. So as you said, it was a bit complicated to say, but I have two different jobs. So one is I'm a neurosurgeon. So to become a neurosurgeon, you have to transmit your knowledge, and it's a practical knowledge a lot and the know-how. So you have young people coming with you and assisting you, and it's a long way to go to be a surgeon. It's not very creative. So it's not, I wouldn't say army, but you really need to pass through different problematics in order to be a surgeon. So that's one job in which I have to be more probably severe, and I expect more, precision for these people. And on the other side, I'm in a research. I co-lead a research center, and this is completely different. I also have a lot of young people working with me, but in that case, I do not have to ask anything. I mean, creativity is the most important. You mainly have to guide them instead of asking them to do something the way you do, So it's a bit different, but in both situations, transmission of knowledge is important for me.
Yeah, amazing. So you kind of do miracles, right? Do you do miracles? Sometimes you feel like there's do you believe in miracles? But sometimes, especially, I'm not a specialist, but we know so little about brain, right? Mm-hmm. So do you think that we will soon know
more?
How much do we know about brain?
So that was not in the question.
No, it's not in the question.
But I mean, that's the reason why I've chosen this specialty, because we don't know much and there is much to know. But
Exactly.
I mean, that's my fascination for this discipline, this field, because I think there is so much to learn.
You're like a discoverer, a pioneer, like discovering a new.
So that's more on the research field, on the clinical field. It's less creative. We are not supposed to invent new thing on each patient every day, but on the research side, it's really important to be creative and to find new things to go forwards.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. No, because I have a mother. My mother has Alzheimer, so I see every day how the brain can, transform a person. So that's why I'm like a little bit moved by what you're doing. Anyway, ethics and morality at the heart of transmission.
You have to talk. You have to take it.
Yeah, ethics. I mean, on my side is probably, I would say, it's important for me to teach well in order to have people doing a good job after that, But when you teach well, you also give a lot of what you're doing. But you are proud then because you have young people that become good and that are also proud to come from your school. It's so. I think that's my ethic. My ethic is to give as much as I can to these young people in order to have good people being with you too, and also going out with a good training. So that's my ethic of transmission of knowledge.
I think when you are, like Jocelyn said, in front of young people full of ideas, etc., my job was more to ask them to go a step forward, a next step. And quite often, I have to say that I have been working my whole life in high-tech industry, but I have a PhD in social science, so I'm not a scientist if you compare to this kind of a person. But that was an advantage to come and to dare to ask questions which were sometimes silly, but just to say, you should talk together, you should sit together. And I'm very proud that my way of transmitting something was to push people beyond their comfort zone, and that they maybe discuss with somebody coming from another discipline. And I have some concrete example of people who didn't talk together before, even being on the same campus, and they then launch a startup together. So that's what I think is in knowledge management, is also to go a little bit beyond the discipline and to ask to have the vision on solution, which come quite often from transdisciplinary approach, which is contradictory with the pure research in science, because there is, for example, now it starts to be, but there were not a lot of journals publishing transdisciplinary research. It was almost very disciplinary. So my ethic, or I think it's to first of all to ask people to be really genuine in their research and trustful to the basic of research, because knowledge in research is you have to make that available to everybody, because the results have to be reproducible. So, and it's the opposite of knowledge management in terms of managing intellectual property, because you don't want to give to other the trick to do the thing. So that's a little bit in between, which is sometimes what I think is important is push people beyond their comfort zone and their limits.
The limits. Access to the transmission of knowledge is not without concessions, I guess.
Yeah, of course. So when you give something, it's given, and then you create knowledge elsewhere. I mean, you make a gift to people when you give the knowledge, but also I think you create some competition. So you can be scared, and that's something that we all feel sometimes when you have very brilliant, talented people around you, and you teach them something, then they become good, you know. And good is they could create competition not only between them but also with you, you know. When they could go, at least I would say, you know, for doctors, for example. So you train new doctors, and then they go out, they have a practice, their own practice, and it may be a competitive practice to yours, but I think it's okay. It's okay. It's better to be surrounded by good competitive people instead of selecting people that are not so good and then decided to have people weaker around you. But that's, I think, probably, and also that's something I try to teach, is that between them to try not to be too competitive, but it's something that I see every day, competition between people. And I think that's the problem when you teach.
It's not wonderful when it becomes creative and not when it stops you for
So again, on the medical side, you know, the competition is more that people know more and more and they become independent and the competitor. On the creative side, the research side, the people, they know more, they get good, and then they go forward. I mean, they leave your center, they create a new center somewhere else, and they do things that are similar to yours. So they become competitors. So that's the example. But I think it's life and it's good. It's better to have good competitors that were trained by you instead of having other people.
Right. You know where they're coming from.
Yes. Talking about, protecting ideas or not, for a long time, patents were there to protect weak, small inventor, but then it started to be also a kind of weapon against competition. And there is a big debate knowing should everything be open, free to everybody to innovate on the top of some invention, or is it important to keep patents? There is over 1 million patents granted worldwide each year, so it's big. And if we think, it has been more like something, as I said, it's the nuclear weapon. You have that against your competitor. If they infringe you, you can say that. But instead of protecting, giving credit to the inventor, a young person or a research institute, it's more a war. If you think about Apple and Google, if they were fighting for Android, it was just during years. I've been in my previous life in a situation where a competitor attacked us, and at the end of the day, it was because we became leader in a sector, and they thought that we had money, and we end up with a settlement. The only winner in this battle were the lawyers, so it's a good job. But just to say, now I think it's also, the patent could be perceived as a kind of break to innovation. Except maybe in the biotechnology where, a molecule is also a way to produce it, and that's something. So patents are there to protect a certain knowledge, but also to reinsure investors, for example, to put enough money to continue to develop. But as Jocelyn said, at the end, it's know-how which is important. It's the way, le savoir-faire, that makes the difference between a good and a bad thing.
Thank you. There's 6 minutes left. What are your 3 advices that you would give to the new generations? And if you had to keep only one?
Curiosity. That's what moved my whole career, and I would suggest to everybody, go a little bit beyond your natural pool.
Yeah.
What about you?
About the same. I mean, to be positive and to even, the world sometimes we can be worried of the future because there are so much competition. A lot of people want to do the same thing as what you do. I think you don't have to look at this and do your best, but it's obvious. Do your best to go towards your scope.
Yes, exactly. Love that. If you have a question to ask to Jocelyn, or
should I start? So, Jocelyn, you are on one hand, you said, a neurosurgeon, very precise. On the other hand, you decided to go to be also an entrepreneur. So, how do you manage to keep this both sides of your life together?
I started being a surgeon, but that was my first.
Maybe you should explain what you did as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, but that will be long. So, but at the beginning, I started being a neurosurgeon, and then actually I met the same person you know very well, Patrick Abicher, where I spent 2 years in research with him. That was at the beginning of my training, and I saw that was cool. And then I was so happy to keep a foot in the research all my life, because after a while, you must admit that being a surgeon is nice at the beginning, but then it becomes also a little bit boring, because I shouldn't say that, but it's a bit repetitive. And the entrepreneurship that you have when you have a research center is give you a bit of air, a novelty air, and I'm happy to have both. But probably, Patrick Abicher was the person who gave me the kick to do this. And nowadays, I'm very happy to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to tell you all what I'm doing because it's too long. And I think you've heard enough these days.
Yes, making people walk even after injury of the
spinal cord. Mm-hmm. But on your side, also, that a question for me that I think is concerning us all, because I know that you're very curious, you're innovation, and when we are all getting older, you agree with that, unfortunately. When we get older, how do you cope with young people being so innovative? Have you sometimes the impression you get old-fashioned, or how can you keep the track without being ridiculous sometimes, being the old mama with these young people? So, you know, how do you do this?
Yes, I am 63, so
I'm also getting old, and I feel this very often, that I would like an advice from you.
no, I started my career in research, then I went to the industry, then I changed to academia, and as you said, I was the first woman at the executive committee of a company of the Swiss Market Index. Bon, then the company was kicked out of the SMI, that's another joke, but in fact, Patrick Grébicher, the same. We knew each other since we were kids, and he asked me to help him to develop this innovation. And his main argument to convince me to take half of the salary. By the way, some people don't want to change their career if they have to give up on some of this part. He told me, you see, it's intellectually stimulating. And that's what made me realize that I said, oh, yeah, I come for 2, 3, 4 years, but I stayed 8. Because if every day you meet people who are interesting, it stimulates you, etc. So for me, curiosity was there already before, because otherwise I would not have made this move. Nowadays, yes, I've started myself a startup, not with a big success at the end, but just because I think I'm always looking for the new thing. And yes, almost daily I try to read things which are a little bit different to what I already know, because I think it's a way probably to maintain your brain also active. But I think we can be able to be interested in innovation, and especially I'm trying to support also young entrepreneurs and helping them stimulate also my creativity and my way of developing my own curiosity a little bit further.
Wonderful, thank you very much. I think we, do you want to say a last word, something? Anything else you want to add?
Do you have a special question for us?
No, well, I just want to go back into building bridge. No, I'm joking.
But now I am on the board of a company, engineering company, so maybe I should have a look.
Bravo.